Sup Shredders, my name is Logan, aka Spiderhands, and welcome to an SP Reacts, where today we have ourselves an album from an act named Raw Soul titled Journey Destination. And if we switch over to here, we have ourselves the album on the screen on Spotify with the art up on the page. Now this is not the first time that I've reviewed Raw Soul's music. We've also listened through the Flu Season EP previously, as well as In Another Life. We're going to be checking out all 10 tracks of this album, listening through them from start to finish, and we're going to hear what we think. Let's do it, starting with Terra.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so
Mic check.
carefully textured already.
Raw soul.
Great work on the keys.
Right. Yeah. One day at a time, or one round to define. I've come back to the climb. Done broken my mind. Done torn my insides. Flesh and spirit design. Handcraft by divine. I've come to take mine. I've come to turn minds. We at the turn of the tide. The moral in a decline. The road ahead isn't fine. Strong doing the time. The weak leading the blind. No leaders to find. Algorithm a lie. Our minds being fried. Connections retire. Isolation the error. No time to rewind. Alienate with despairing. I'm cool but they fairer.
Great use of double tracking as well.
Tick tock to the terror. Hold the mic in the hand. I got more to demand. Time and tighten the plan. Rhyming like I'm in trance. Writing like it's enhanced. Flying back to Japan. Changing cents for the yen. They do it all for the gram. Blowing bucks but no hunting. I'm speaking smart but it's dumbing. Piece the prop shit is crumbling. Still genocide that they funding. Spreading lies, shit's insulting. The best of us they be calling. All of us blindly running. Fuck it, just keep it 100. Every day I step on. We're going back, going forward. Heart beating the dawn. And crossing paths, cutting corners. Living past with my form is foreign soul ain't where home is. Sure, I talk like a warrior, but I write like a lawyer. One day at a time, or one rhyme at a time. Come back just to climb. Try breaking my spine. They lie, manipulate minds. Flesh and spirit deprived. System set by design. System set by design. Fucking man, we still fighting. Every day we enlighten. Light still getting brighter. Our souls become heightened. The love everlasting. Do it all for the passion. No dollars I'm cashing. Prize ahead what I'm banking.
Interesting how things faded out at the end there and we're left with the theme to remain. So that was Terra, track number 1. I get the impression from talking about like TikTok and the gram and everything like that and not doing it for the money, like, are we kind of discussing the purpose that we do this music for, or sort of trying to fulfill a higher function or something like that? I get the kind of inference of an us versus them kind of aesthetic here, where it kind of seems like we're discussing our position. We're talking about like becoming a lawyer or something like that. I think that we have recently been on our journey towards that, which is kind of dope. But yeah, maybe examining our position here on this earth with social media, with how we present ourselves, how we function, how we coexist, and how important the choices we make are. And then systems set by design, almost like we're trying to work within that system and overcome it. It's interesting. I think one of the things that makes this track work really well, just to get out of the way, is the quality of the vocal performance here. There's a similar approach to how we phrase things and express ourselves here, where guys starting with that mic check at the beginning, and we spit over the top of this 2-minute track in a way where it's eloquent but also authentic. And you've got the kind of the vocal take in the background there with that melody working alongside of it, those strings, the kind of 70s era there peeking through. Wonderful tone to the brass and everything like that. We've just simply got Raw Soul in the center speaking their truth there. And I just think that's kind of what you need off of the starting track of an album. You need to instantiate an understanding that you're in safe hands with the storyteller. And I feel like we handled that well. The words came through clearly. There was great use of double tracking on the vocals as well, and things were very well fleshed out. There's also an interesting sort of approach to the way that we handled the percussion within this, because we didn't really have any. It was a case we had the cymbal hits and a slight pulse, but it was very different to a lot of rap and hip hop that I've heard, where it is more kind of groove oriented. And I kind of dig that things were sort of floating in the ether there, almost like we were starting things off a bit more gently to kind of let people know, hey, look, we are here, we can rap even if we don't have something to kind of like bounce along to, and it can be engaging. And I think just In addition to the lack of percussion providing just a really interesting beginning to this album, it was also, again, the use of the brass, providing a sort of a vintage feel to the track there with the strings, the vocals in the background, like kind of a nice bit of color to contrast with the more rhythmic orient of the vocal takes and the rapping. For that to be able to last 2 minutes and be engaging and compelling there, for it to start without Raw Soul there, to allow things to be without him for a bit and to kind of build into that was fantastic structurally. And I think in general, the colorization of the piece in general, harmonically and texturally, just shows a sense of sophistication I think is very welcome within an album. But we've got To the Top, track number 2. Very comfortable with the theme once we instantiate it.
I got plenty ammo, spitting slugs like I'm Rambo. I be pulling all the plugs like I run all of the channels. Shit, I'm about to handle all the damage to my lungs. I don't smoke too much, blowing ammo like a gun. I just run a lap around her cow, 1v1. I'm for real about to steal plates like on a run. Okay, bounce back, shorty bounce that. I got the cheese and the steez, be a mousetrap.
Great use of call and response with the vocals here as well.
I got house cash, I got flows, and for sure we ain't gonna douse to the top. If you ain't about it, man, I'ma fuck it up. Running through the city, damn, she gon' pick it up. If she gon' drop it, you know she gon' pick it up. Okay, what you talking about? Let me go and hit 'em up. If you ain't about it, man, I'ma fuck it up. Running through the city, damn, she gon' pick it up. If she gon' drop it, you know she gon' pick it up. Okay, what you talking about? Let me go and hit 'em up. Hit 'em up. Hit 'em up. Yeah. Hit 'em up. Okay, what you talking about?
Interesting vocal modulation here. And the kind of certain kind of whine of those keys is just a really interesting sensation now. But the really classy fade out at the end, nice. So I like the wordplay with this. I got the steez, got the cheese, be a mousetrap. It's great. It's clever lyrics. I think this track is about someone who is running through the city trying to find success, kind of following on potentially from Terra and making the most of the shorties that they get along with. And I think that's cool. I think there's more to it though, but that's my sort of take on the first listen. When he says that he's running it with you, is that the indication of being with that person and kind of doing it with them? So is there more than simply throwing it back? I'm not sure, but either way, it's great. It's an interesting story following on from that, their interactions with other people. One of the things that I think works well about this piece is that we do that vocal modulation in the second half there. It's kind of cool to get the bass side and then the higher range stuff where it almost kind of seems like you got like maybe a woman and men's perspective on either sides of the stereo field there. Kind of people sort of like singing along and rocking along to it. I think that's kind of cool. It's just an interesting sort of decision there compositionally to have that inference and to allow the hook to be done like that freshens the song up in a way that's quite acceptable and quite well thought out, because the last thing you want is to have too much similarity even in a track that is this short. I think it's also that the tracks again are short. They don't overstay their welcome. We have a concept, we explore it, maybe we have the hook at the start, and then we have the verse and more context, and then we have the second chorus where there was that kind of vocal modulation or that pitch shifting or whatever, and it just kind of makes it seem a bit more intriguing. And you bounce out to that. You have these fade out to the end where it just kind of closes in a way it's very sort of like classic. And like instrumentally as a final note, I appreciate the recording quality of the actual instruments within this. The roundness, the fullness of the drum tones there, that electric bass in the low end there that's just kind of working its way around the system in a way that's very satisfying. That kind of spooky kind of string or key there that's kind of fading out. And it's just but it resonates in a kind of an interesting way. It just has a really kind of smoky feel to it, you know. And there's these kind of sub-layer kind of like synths arpeggios on the background as well. Like there's layers and sub-layers. And so we include all these elements and ingredients in a way where it's non-predictable, and it keeps you intrigued for those 2 minutes there, and you get that further context and adjustment with the lead, and it just fills it out quite well. So ultimately, I feel like it's just one of the strengths of this album is the use of time within it to tell the story and to illustrate what they're capable of production or sort of like songwriting wise. And again, no complaints with that one. So we got How That Sound, track number 3. The lo-fi aesthetic is strong with this one though.
Feel like I'm running through sounds, coming down, coming up while she around. Need that crown, working yet I'm underground. How that sound, pushing beats, I'm earning pounds, earning green, I'm music loud. Feel like I'm running through sounds, coming down, coming up while she around. Need that crown, working yet I'm underground. How that sound, pushing beats, I'm earning pounds, earning green, the music loud. Everybody gon' come for they turn. Young soul pushing pounds, he gon' earn. I'm just letting what I got to burn. Steady making butter and we do churn. Blessings gon' come and we gon' learn. Session for somewhere we concern. Talking more facts, how you gon' serve. Taking shit back till the day returns.
The middle one sides.
The smoke, but yeah, I'm down for a toke. Spazzed out, you can see the yoke. Ain't crack, but I'm out for a poke. Oh shit, now ain't that jokes. I might just overdose. Want a brother when that's all, folks. Want a brother when that's all, folks. No brother who got your ghost. I'm coming through with the dose. They showing they lacking the most. I'm running with her, they running with her. I'm sounding like I'm coming straight for ya. I'm back in on 3 free flows. Till grown broken, comatose. Shit, I'm over these blokes. I'm way over 3 strokes. No birdie, my dear folk. But I'ma keep clear and keep afloat. Shit, I'm over these blokes. I'm way over 3 strokes. No birdie, my dear folk. Keep clear and keep afloat. Feel like I'm running through sounds. Coming down, coming up while she around. Need that crown, working yet I'm underground. How that sound, pushing peas, I'm earning pounds, earning green, the music loud. Feel like I'm running through sounds. Coming down, coming up while she around. Need that
It's a very sleepy sound to it, to be fair. It's a very soothing sound to that kind of
pushing peas, I'm earning pounds, earning green, the music loud.
the glissando kind of kind of like a music box, something like that, you know?
Shit, now ain't that jokes. I might just overdose. Want a brother when that's all, folks. Want a brother when that's all, folks. No brother who got your ghost. I'm coming through with the dose. They showing they lacking the most. I'm running with her, they running with her. I'm sounding like I'm coming straight for ya. I'm back in, I'm talking more facts, how you gon' serve. Taking shit back till the day returns. Cutting back on the smoke, but yeah, I'm down for a toke. Spazzed out, you can see the yoke. Ain't crack, but I'm out for a poke. Oh shit, now ain't that jokes. I might just overdose. Want a brother when that's all, folks. How that sound, pushing beats, I'm butter and we do churn. Blessings gon' come to burn. Steady making butter and we do churn. Blessings gon' come.
So I'm unsure of how to sort of take How That Sound. On one end, I want to sort of think it literally exploring sounds and different sort of vibes as a musician and trying to find their way through it. But then it also talks about maybe the things we do in order to find those sounds and tones and textures. And if that's the case, that's cool. It's an interesting sort of further development from To the Top and Terra. I think here, one of the things that works kind of neatly is that you have that use of the vocals in the center and then the call and response going to the side there or the double track in there. And it's just a really easy way to split up a verse line and kind of keep it kind of interesting. It's like, oh, we're backwards and forwards, you know. But then once you start becoming sort of cognizant of the fact that they're doing that, they then flip it on its head, and that's just you know, it's just well done. I think another thing that's just kind of soothing and satisfying is the theme behind it. We have the 16th note groove with the cymbals and the kicks and stuff like that. And then we have the bass line underneath, which is very kind of like palatable and clean, and it niches really well with whatever is going on with the kit at that point in time. But it's also that kind of that plucked part, that boom, boom, where that keys or synths or whatever. I love the tone of those. I think they're fantastic. And it's just beautiful. And it adds a kind of sort of weird kind of surrealist innocence to it, because the note choices and for a lack of resolution, you know, we're not going to the resolving chord with any of these parts. It's almost like we're on a never-ending search for that sound, and that's what music suggests. But I think what captures it really well is how nicely things are leveled and niched together. I think the last thing you can afford with an album like this is to have something interfering or taking you out of what the affectation that the album is trying to have. You know, like having one sample too loud or too quiet even can completely shift it. So for them to sort of be aware of that and go, okay, we're actually just going to make something extremely polished whilst also sort of like keeping a sense of humanity within it is fantastic. But also the EQing, the way things have been filtered, the use of the fade outs with the volume and stuff like that at the end of some of the tracks and everything like that, it's just all very impressive. And I just feel like this is kind of what you need at this level. It's just great to have that consistency performatively over the vocals as well throughout these 3 tracks. We've got A While, track number 4. Interesting use of extended chords within those harmonies. The bass underneath the piano is so fantastic, dude. They niche so well.
The situation looks like low tide. So young bull throwing fuel on toes. Some shit too late to undo. Some shit got me all types of confused. Like how did I pull through? And how did this come true? And what did I lose? What is there to prove? I'm just trying to find a way to escape. It's a little too late. Got enough on my plate. Why you looking in distaste? I'm tasteful, my plate full. Hunting for 100 down, 1,000 man. You know I'm wasteful, looking up to the sky. Sometimes I wonder why I deserved another try. After all that I've sighed, I'm feeling like the meaning behind my dreaming got me in the deep end. But I ain't weekend. I'm still afloat, I cope with hope. Got the boat, I'm soaked, but all's good. I don't wanna boast. Life ain't been this good in a while. Got plenty reasons for me to smile.
Sorry to interrupt. I just like how pleasant it is to have a lack of clarity to those, like those. I can't do it justice, but the sung melodies behind the main vocals or rap parts there. It's not just that we're layering these notes together on top of each other, these takes, but that we're deliberately trying to sort of choose a focus point for it.
Dial the maker, he sent pass through the trials. One day I hope to wander through halls with marble tiles. Yeah, life ain't been this good in a while. Got plenty reasons for me to smile. I dial the maker, he sent pass through the trials. One day I hope to wander through halls with marble tiles. You know, like the world's in a terrible state right now, you know. But if you can impact your surroundings in a positive light, I mean, what more can you do? Yeah, as time
I mean, it's a good message, right?
Pens and swords, I hold crisp, what y'all pick. Man, I'm stumbling behind through night, I steer bricks. Not the drugs, but more the weight of faith, the hall's bliss. Man, I'm grasping at the wish. I'm fumbling with the mist, grip my itch to turn back the tides of time. I can't find myself sublime unless I return to what was mine. I can't help but state these things. I'm a lost soul, Lord. Can't you grant me wings? Take me to the tip of the peak. Forgive my sins. I ain't bad, Lord. I'm just not disciplined. Now listen, man. I guess the cries, a sigh, or whispers in the night. In time I find that It was alright, what can I say? I'm not deep down in the plight. My brothers out there, I hold wishes for your light, man. Life ain't been this good in a while. Got plenty reasons for me to smile. I dialed the maker, he sent paths through the trials. One day I hope to wander through halls with marble tiles, yeah.
Damn.
Life ain't been this good in a while. Got plenty reasons for me to smile. I dialed the maker, he sent paths through the trials. One day I hope to wander through halls with marble tiles.
It's such a soothing, wonderful piano line as well. No, it's wonderful. Really blown away by it. Fantastic work. I like the message in the middle of this, talking about how the world's in a terrible state, but if you can just impact what's around you in a way that's positive, what more can you do? I like that. I think it's a very, careful and valid way of approaching things without trying to fix things for other people necessarily. It's simply trying to make the world a better place by trying to sort of make small changes that will benefit, people, if that makes sense. It's wonderful to have that within here. I get the feeling that a while is more sort of like looking over his life, where he's going with it, kind of figuring out where he's at, what he's wanting to do with it, and how he wants to move forward. He talks about in this track about looking to like maybe a higher power or something like that, if I'm not mistaken, and kind of like trying to find purpose in the suggestion basically. And I think that honestly, they make really special music, and I'm glad that music is a part of their purpose. But it's just so nice to just have him kind of speak in that in the middle bit in a longer track and simply have that little subtle interlude there. A moment of simply discussing things with the person listening to it, acknowledging their identity as someone hearing them out and being respectful of that. I think it's great, You have different choruses and different verses within this track to make up with that time period, but just the structure of it is fantastic, alongside the fact that we simply try to approach our communication differently. I think I also mentioned that, again, the softness of those sung vocal takes in the background, kind of giving the theme of some person at like a lounge bar or something like that, singing out and speaking out their truth, etc. I like that that is what's kind of like provided here, what's kind of suggested. And I don't think that we could have done it any other way, honestly. Like it's just a fantastic environment to create musically. Again, with the keys, the bass, the drums, you don't really need much more than this. It's just enough of an environment to be able to keep things salient. And there's no filler within this either. At 4 minutes, we have managed to provide an experience which was it was captivating. But in a way where you could also just kind of sit there and listen passively and just kind of nod your head to it as well, and just maybe just sort of absorb both sides of it. So I appreciate that. I think it's great getting into like the halfway point of this album, just knowing that we continue to put out really sort of solid efforts. But we've got track number 5, Monk.
You're jealous.
Yeah, twisting in a cage, barbed wires on the page. Young Spectre wear pen tablets filled with rage. I had many a phase, only two remained the same. Pencil and pad and microphones on the stage. Took many a turn, detours and homies spurn. Lovers lost and bridges burned. Patience tempered as I sharpen words. I surprise my own defiance with a lesson learned. Everybody wants a smile.
I surprise my own defiance with a lesson learned. It's just clever stuff, man.
I got more to gain. I done played the game. I ain't one to play. I done staked my claim. As the seasons change, snow turns to rain. Things I guess don't always stay the same. Bottomless pockets until the stock dips. Shut the cockpit. I'ma fly like a rocket. I won't quit until the foam sits dry and the mouth gets locked up and stops no heart spit. You know I pop shit like I got zits. I'm hot bitch and still speak like I got it. The fox sits still when seeking out the rabbit. I leapt from the bottom of the basement to the attic. Yet to some things I'm still an addict. No monk in the habit, but gotta get rid of some bad habits, taking steps on the ladder while I'm at it. Canvas the hope, I quote, I wrote, and go ahead and grab it.
A nice interesting use of reverse takes here to switch things up.
Yeah, flashes of a man who once was damned, coming back to entrance. I got plenty of plans, spent many on chance, did many a dance, I penned many a stanza. Some of these verses were mantras. All I ever wanted was to make myself a G, as solid as can be, difficult though it seemed. I kept faith for the dream, yet I doubted me. Now I look at myself and see I was complete. Here I'm penning a track that perhaps ain't but a victory lap. In fact, there ain't much wisdom here, but man, got reminders for me to stay. Slip and fall, but get up and pray. Pave your way, keep up the pace, don't give up the chase. Talk to God and speak your pain. Reach out and he'll hold your name. To my brothers in my heart, you are engraved, dearly departed. I pray you're in a better place. As I trip and fall, understand I did it all. Young dude just trying to answer the call. Who you know pen these flows like I do? Young soul, you know how I tried to come through. Here I make moves, young fool, trying to understand the plan. If I can do it, know I'll become the man. Become the man. Looking in this mirror, see it's understood. Understood, damn.
Interesting decision.
Mirror, see it's understood. Understood, damn. Looking in this mirror, see it's understood. Understood, damn. Looking in this mirror, see it's understood. Understood, damn.
What's made him act this way?
Interesting use of samples in this one. I kind of dig it. Because that was Monk, a track from Raw Soul, track number 5 off of this album. So this one's different. I kind of get the impression that we're more sort of focusing on our development and who we want to be, our aspirations to become a G, to become someone that we can respect and sort of be proud of. And we look into what we wanted when we were younger and who we are now. And you kind of get the samples of sort of talking about like who they are as a person, how they've become that way, etc. And it's just an interesting decision to include them, but in a great way. I feel like it's good use of samples for creativity purposes. So I think one of the things that works well is the use of samples here to kind of add a sense of intrigue and like, oh, what's that? What's going on there? There's a further context, there's further clues, without Raw Soul being too blunt about it. I think that that's something you can get away with in a track in a way that's not sort of like, that if you can manage to mesh it in there so that it doesn't sound too kind of stuck out, it's fantastic. I think you need to have like bits of it sprinkled throughout, because if you have too much at the start, it can kind of be a little bit kind of like, oh, why are we doing it like that? But no, we had it kind of at the beginning, in the middle, and fade out. And otherwise, Raw Soul spoke their truth. And ultimately, I just think it was great to hear more of their mission statement, of their history there. I think another thing I had to mention alongside the really cool use of filters and the fact that they had this almost kind of like high-end filter to them, not like as in like they got rid of the lows and only had like the kind of like the higher frequencies there. It kind of makes it seem a little bit kind of like violently or crackly. I dig it. But it's also the fact that we had those kind of inverted takes in the middle, those inverted kind of like fun sort of like kind of glitchy ideas that almost like we're looking back through time, going through a time machine to look back at how things used to be. I think that kind of makes sense when we're looking back at ourselves back then versus now and kind of comparing and reassessing. And it's just great imagery from a musical perspective in order to be able to accomplish that. I think finally it's the measure, the balance of this, where we communicated in a way which was like platonic enough to express what we needed to in a way which would be more affronting for people who are more sensitive to it. But we also didn't try to sort of like sugarcoat or even necessarily try to quote unquote make it catchy. Like there was great use of rhythm and flow throughout this, but it was very much a story where if you're at this point of the album, you're just sitting there listening and you're there to accept it. It's more like a conversation than anything else. I think there's 1,001 ways you can mark up the delivery of like bars and stanzas within our Epinephrine tracks, and we managed to skip those here, which is really good. Ultimately, I can understand how the theme connected to it, almost like we're crying out for something, like crying out for ourselves to maybe be more accepting of who we were and stuff like that. We also talk about the people who'd fallen, hoping they're finding a better place and stuff like that. So I'm wondering if they're the people they met over the way that didn't make it for whatever reason, which is, it's sad, but yeah, just an interesting, mature acknowledgement throughout this piece there that is an interesting way to finish the first half of the album. Because we have 2012 now, Raw Soul. Saxophone? Oh, it's gorgeous, dude.
Turning the page, I'm penning new chapters. What am I after? Peace and joy, love and laughter. Apocalyptic, people going Casper. Since 2018, I'm mature, turning master. Now I find that I speak in all cryptic. 2012, done turned me to a mystic. Several escapades made a youth to a misfit. Neurons misfired, but that was the ticket. Cherry pick it like farmers at a protest. Confess to success, let us toast, yes. Most deaf, I did not fall, yeah. Got roasted by friends who weren't bros, yeah. I hold close the ties that done turned me to a martyr. Don't know what I would have done without my father. They covered their ears instead of peeking under covers. Pedals on the floor like tests from a lover. Son of man, some be damned, I'ma shine like the sun on land. Supply flows like I'm in demand. I just taunt like it ain't planned. When I'm gone, will they call it chance? If I take and take without giving back, will they call me selfish or a rich ass man? I mean, goddamn, when I'm gone, put me on a list. Man who made art, rarely an artist.
Is that like a theme or something they recorded separately, or is it just an interesting room sound they have there, eh? So I think that 2012 is discussing maybe some of the things that happened when they were a bit younger there. Yeah, they talk about how 2012 turned them from a youth into a misfit, several escapades. If it wasn't for their dad, they wouldn't have known what they... if it wasn't for their dad, they wouldn't have known what would have happened, if I'm not mistaken correctly. Kind of in a way which kind of opens up a little bit further to what their life was like up until that point, part of the development, sort of like understanding how they got to that mystical perspective. And so what I want to sort of measure here is that I think that 2012, first of all, is just a fantastic, brief little extra chapter in this piece between the journey and the destination. Part of growing up is accepting our youth and who we were and how it's contributed to how we are, where we are. And I think that the way we had this, we had like that saxophone alone by itself in the room with the keys, kind of like trying to comfort it, to come up and allow ourselves just to sort of be honest about the kind of stuff we got up to when we were younger, and for it didn't sort of fade out with the drums coming in a bit later on. You can kind of imagine someone playing the saxophone along in their room as a very sort of like lonely experience, that they were isolated and they were heavily affected by that. It infers that without the vocals necessarily needing to be too sort of blunt about it. The symbolism from the instrument choice alone is fantastic, but it's also this kind of weird sort of jazzy, soulish romanticism to the piece there, where we kind of look at who we are and show love for ourselves, whilst also a sense of understanding there's a lot of nuance to this situation. We accept who we used to be. There's no harsh edges to the track either, which sort of insinuates that we aren't trying to be too unkind to ourselves, but we understood just these things happened, and now a part again of how we got here. I like the fact that there is that wordplay as well, but also that regardless of what kind of style we approach, there is great use of extensions, and the drums are very much sort of like pitched in a way where it suits the flow of the vocals when they are there, when more sort of dominant. Not in all these tracks, but in some of them they are like that. And it's just it's got a sense of swagger to it as well, confidence, but it's quite calm confidence. There's also just the studio production, the understanding that if we make that solo saxophone take at the beginning end too clean, it can kind of seem like it's just part of the track, and like the track should be that full of life or full of vigor, and it's just not the case. They're allowing it to be a little bit more sort of like raw so that you understand the distinction between them. You can hear it clearly. It helps to segment the track a bit better. It's like knowing how to do everything in post-production and then going further by being able to make it unique. So just interesting use of contrast within this amongst everything else. Really, really good so far. We've got Words From Your Tongue, track number 7.
Words from your tongue blocked out my son. Words from your tongue. Despite it all, I felt
Interesting triplet groove here.
became a fool. Now I'm alone in my room. Thought I would have become you. Thought I was so damn true. Thought I was cool, but all along I see who I am. Who you taught me to see. Want me to believe. Want me to be free. But in reality, I am simply but a piece of shit that's just me. Your words completely left nothing to see. But a man so empty. Yes, your words stung. At a time I was young. Though yes, they have rung true in the years to come. I guess I am done. Words from your tongue blocked out my son. Blocked out my son. Yes, your words stung. At a time I was young. Though yes, they have rung true in years to come. I guess I am done. Words from your tongue blocked out my son. Blocked out my son. Blocked out my son.
Is it a vocal take on top?
Words from your tongue
Or is it like a heavily modulated or affected synth?
blocked out my son. No, you're not wholly to blame. Your words stung, but my friend, I bear my own dear shame. Your words cannot explain the deeds I have done, the ones that still hunt. To them I still run. I guess I am just dumb. I think your views were valid. Perhaps I was just a damage all brought on this planet, sent forth to incite panic. I guess you were right. I was less in my light. I've come far, but I still don't think I can shine bright. Yes, your words stung. At a time I was young. Though yes, they have rung true in the years to come. I guess I am done. Words from your tongue blocked out my son. Blocked out my son. Yes, your words stung. At a time I was young. Though yes, they have rung true in years to come. I guess I am done. Words from your tongue blocked out my son. Blocked out my son.
I mean, it's terrible, isn't it?
Blocked out my son. Words from your tongue blocked out my son. Blocked out my son.
So there was an interesting triplet groove over all of this piece there. There was that interesting sort of like uncertain harmony at the beginning of the piece there with the choir or the vocals there. And it had the 7th extension there, which didn't sound like it was resolving. And then you get into this point where they're suddenly talking about how these words from other people have affected them and how it blocked out their son. And it kind of infers that they had an uncomfortable or pretty sort of like savage relationship there for a bit. I think they're talking about potentially friends or something like that. I'm not sure. I might be sort of like misinterpreting it. But either way, I think they've had some relationships or situations where they've gotten hurt and they have really sort of screwed them up. And it's kind of maybe them healing from that position that they are in and getting to a point where they can really sort of find that son again because it got blocked out by these other things. And maybe that's following on from 2012. And that's their growth towards brighter horizons. But either way, it's an interesting story here. I think one of the things that works about this track really neatly is that there is this kind of crying over top of stuff. And it's incredibly emotional. It's like, holy crap, you can hear someone really having it. They're kind of wailing. In the background, I like a lot of it. And the kind of stuff going in the background. It's like, oh, wow, that's incredibly emotional and heavy. And it contrasts again neatly with the rhythmic sort of delivery from Raw Soul there. And it works neatly with the vocals alongside like the spoken, the rap parts, alongside the drums, which have great sense of rhythmic unison there as well. So I think the triplet groove that we had in the drum kit here was very welcome. And it was interesting to have some 16th triplets here, dun 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 dun, like that kind of like flow to it, that kind of sass to the alongside the key parts was tremendous. I could just be confusing that with some guitar parts. To be fair, there could be some sort of like brum, and then I'm misinterpreting the text just a little bit. Either way, the bass, the drums, the guitar was so relatively simple, except it's just the feeling, the expression, the way it carries you through that matters here. And there's some sort of like hand drums that are going on as well. Not hand drums, steel drums or steel pans or something like that are added there as well for a bit of color and a bit of range. But like, it's just a very sobering experience. I think it's just testament to the fact that they managed to have contrast with previous tracks where before you'd have like a certain section with like a downfill to stuff and then like a middle to. Here you get a similar theme or atmosphere the entire time, almost like that feeling of pain they got with the sun blocked out was a constant here. So I think that it's great to have range structurally between tracks which are more sort of niched and sort of like affected, and there's more variety there. And then these tracks here with like Words from Your Tongue, where it's more of an overall message and vibe for 3 minutes. I feel like that range is great within this album. And again, no real complaints about anything so far. I think this has been a solid set of tracks so far. We have Simple Breeze though, track number 8. Oh, those keys are fantastic though, the way they kind of glide over the right hand.
Tippy tapping to the sound of the snare drum. I'm in red form, got flows like a beach bum. On a mad run, I ain't chapped up the lip balm. You know I rip songs while I sip some coffee and a bit of water. The bars are harder than a brisk run while the sun the hottest. Lately I've been soaking in the melodies of a cool breeze while my brain crease with a bit of worry. But I'm living as I need, take a couple breeze. I mean breaths, can't be taking rest, just reset the reps. Reflect the freshest of the west. Now living in the east, chilling in my peace, cooking speed, spitting, ripping and killing on all these beats. Taking time out the week, let off little steam. Can't help but share the stream. I'm just a fiend to the loop in the tone of G major. Now when you wanna find a tune, play this in your whip while you're out going on a cruise. I got bars for your blows, got the sky to peruse. If she's smiling, that's your cue. Don't be shy, make your move now. If she down to ride, let her come round. Cruise through the city till the sun down. But I'm riffing on the beat, tapping my feet. If you vibe and ride with me, hit a simple beat. Yeah, I'm cooking with no fees, just a little soulful piece. I'm just gonna stop rapping now because I'm gonna peace.
Great attitude there, man. I love it. Just out.
Let loose some steam, you know what I'm saying? It's Sunday afternoon. It's almost 5 o'clock. Yeah. Bum, bum, bum. Ride with me.
Fantastic stuff. So I think that this is a more pleasant track primarily because I think it's focusing on the self-care that Raw Soul is doing for themselves after the difficulties that they've had there. I think they got a lot of the stuff out of their system. And now at this point, we're getting closer to the destination where we simply can live life. So we spend like a lot of this track talking more about driving around with someone when she's into it and everything like that, driving until the sun goes down and just enjoying life and being happy. And then he just kind of pieces out at that 1 minute 30 mark. And so I want to sort of like discuss, that is so cool. It's just so organic. It's so like, oh, we could have had a formulaic verse, chorus, verse part. But you can just tell it's just them on the mic, just spitting their truth and then bouncing. And it's just so pleasant and refreshing to hear that, because the last thing we want at this point is another example of us doing a similar thing that we've done before to a similar quality. We want to have variety within this to continue to explore new concepts, even in a short form factor, and Simple Breeze is a fantastic version of that. It's just great to hear them sort of just be real. I also want to sort of give a shout out to how fragrant the guitar parts are. The picked guitar bits, the lo-fi hip hop aesthetic is so strong with this album in general, but the bar chords there, the hum, the fuzz you can hear from the recording aspect or element of it, with the keys playing some incredibly pretty little like flicks on the right side there. At the end, going into this almost like solo mode there, it's just wonderful. I love the articulation of the keys, how they fly alongside the guitars and bass throughout this, how it works with the drums, because the drums are in here as well, more of a one and like an eighth note groove as opposed to the triplets we had before. But it's just a very peaceful thing as well. So it's not just that we have really interesting ideas and concepts for the individual instruments and how they sort of like niche together and formulate this piece, but it's the overall theme here where I think that with how gentle and reserved it is, it's got this kind of airiness where there's a weird kind of warmth, but that's not too forced, where you genuinely feel like you can just vibe along with it and just kind of like honestly, I feel like this would be a great album to listen to. And this is going to sound terrible without me being very careful about how I phrase it. I first of all think that it's worth listening through this track in totality if you have not had the chance to do it yourself, because there's been some great stuff so far, and I'm sure that with these first 8 tracks being fantastic, the next 2 will. But it's also a song an album where I could very easily just like listen to this while I'm just having a nap or having a sleep or something like that. You know, like people play music and stuff like that? Happily, this is such chill music. It's just so pretty to listen to. It's just so sweet with the softness, a lot of the different textures and timbres, the chord progressions and everything like that. It's so calm and pleasant to listen to. There's some heavy stuff occasionally, but it's never too much. And so I think the affectation of it is well balanced. And ultimately, I just think that is one of the highest compliments I can give, is that it's both interesting and pleasant to listen to at the same time. And that's a very difficult balance to get. But it's just so well authentic to the style as well. Again, the lo-fi hip-hop stuff, like it should be there on every single playlist of lo-fi hip-hop playlist. It just should be. It's fantastic stuff. We'll go What's Next, track number 9. Oh, the flutters.
Yeah. Raw salt. Ride with me. Ride with me. As I feel like I'm.
It's an interesting start. I'll go back a little bit so that we can hear it. It's just having a track with 40-something seconds of instrumental, even going into 3.5 minutes, is very rare these days.
As I feel like I'm guessing answers down up on this test. I've been stressing, but the blessings have been giving me some rest. Crashing forward, roaming home and stressing in my chest. Getting England that, still not at my best. Everybody knows that at times you a mess. No one to confide in, but I step back to the fray. No wait, I'm still in my nest. Too afraid to take the leap to what's coming next. As I step back to prep the next path of left from setbacks. Made ways to get cash. Still get no text back, I guess we mismatch. I've had some mishaps, cut corners when I should've went down on a straight path. Ain't nobody wanna hear where I've been at. They tell me life and art is just pure math. Get the numbers and you'll understand the whole map. Sometimes I wonder if God mad. I did some sinning but still wanna head back. These days all I do is pen some pure tracks. Pensive thoughts from a confused man. Did I lose, man? Is it a new chance? Am I running forward or am I just heading back? Am I class clown? Am I first class? Do I still got it? Am I chasing clouds? Man, I got hope, but I'm run down. Yeah, I still smoke, wanna cut down. Are you still with me? Would you come round? Get high with me, let us float now. Let us float now. Let us float now.
Beautiful, interesting resonance with the strings.
As I feel like I'm guessing answers down up on this test. I've been stressing, but the blessings have been giving me some rest. Crashing forward, roaming home and stressing in my chest. Getting England that, still not at my best. Everybody knows What's coming next? Yeah. Let us flow now. Let us flow now.
It's an interesting combination of elements, this one.
Let us flow now. Let us flow now. Let us flow now. As I feel like I'm guessing answers down slow on this test. I've been stressing, but the blessings have been giving me some rest. Crashing forward, roaming home, and stressing in my chest. Getting into that, still not at my best. Everybody knows that at times you a mess. No one to confide in, but I step back to the frame. No way, I'm still.
You were fading it out. Cool. That makes more sense to me. I wasn't initially sure what we were wanting to accomplish with another chorus on the end. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed listening to it, but it's just with the modulated vocals, the first chorus of that, I felt, oh, we were changing the pitch of them, so that's adjusting the way we approach that. But then we had a second round of it. I thought we were going to have like another solo instrument on top, but it's still very good. Like, I appreciate again having the fade out at the end. And it's just reiterating upon that. Because I think that what's next is a track about the anxiety, the struggle that can come between like either losing connections with people or our lives itself, having to sort of like make big decisions that can affect things in a really heavy way. And it's brutal. It can be brutal. And I think a lot of people will be able to sort of empathize with what Raw Soul is talking about here, whether it is, again, missing text from people or missing life decisions or just kind of like struggling with it. I appreciate what we're trying to sort of do here to communicate that. I think that, again, the contrast between the main sort of rap elements and the double tracking, as well as the later half with the modulated vocals, provides an ample amount of variety through this piece here. But I also want to give a shout out to the fact that we allowed ourselves with those strings at the beginning, that kind of orchestral arrangement, as well as some of those interesting other plucked instruments. Just allowing those to be there for 45 seconds out of a 3.5-minute track is a ballsy move. But I think that it was lush enough to keep us intrigued throughout, and it was cool to be able to sort of like hear it pay off. We had like Raw Soul, we had mentions of ourselves. It wasn't like it was completely instrumental. We had like vocal takes on top of that. But the kind of synth flutters and everything like that. It was just an interesting soundscape as well that was created here, where we allowed ourselves such an amazing amount of both dynamic range, which I'll talk about in a moment, but also color harmonically within this. We may have had extensions, but even if it was just major or minors, it's the way where the different parts of the string section, the synths, the bass and drums, etc., how they niched with each other and flew over each other and decorated things. We didn't have everything all the time, but when we did have things, they were meaningful. And I appreciate that we had a sense of dynamic range to this piece as well, where things weren't too choked. Like at one point, the strings did come up quite a bit volume-wise, and it was around the modulated vocal section. It was quite intense, but it was just enough that we could kind of make out everything. And those are difficult decisions to make in post, and they managed to make the right ones. And it's just nice to allow the vocals just finally just to be the vocal point when they need to, but also to allow ourselves the strings, the synth, the arpeggios, the flutters, the bass, the drums, etc., to be their own focal point as well when required. And ultimately, it's just really fantastic stuff all around. Absolutely no complaints about it. And it was just interesting to have the string sections as a final note with the rap and hip hop sort of like vibe there. I haven't really heard a lot of it focused specifically on that. So it was almost like the strings were more important than a lot of the other elements outside of the vocals. So it was just cool to have that change there, the sense of uniqueness. We've got the final track for today, Journey Destination. A longer form one comparatively at 5:25.
Raw Soul.
Little clicks.
We'll see what the destination is. 2008, young teen laying bricks. Move from slow to the desert to a land of lost bliss. Music blaring off the disc. Never knew what he had, never knew how much he missed. In a home unknown, he found some bros and mo. Gave him his first gift, a mobile phone that played tunes he could store. And you know what's more? They were bros to the core. Haven't had the same kind of homie since. Those years were a gift. Living in a land they now call lawless. Dictators, no doctors. Hidden gem, not flawless. But the people he was around were bosses. Couple years past, form bonds that outlast. Most of them grown, man, we got old fast. Those days were a blast. School's final class, man, it's only up from here. There's no looking back. At a time I was hopeless. Life can change at any moment. At a time I was broke. last for a couple months. Sleeping too much, cutting class, getting high and kinda fucked up. But shit, it's all good. It's just the first year. Had a homie from high school who stayed here, getting back to the work, getting shit turned. Second year, starting to feel a little bit burned. But shit, it's all good. You know I know my worth. Or thought I did till I got flung to the dirt. Third year is the one that broke me. Looked at my reflection, couldn't see the old me. At a time I was hopeless, like can change at any moment. At a time,
So is this gonna be like long form or through composed, I suppose?
at a time I was hopeless, like can change at any moment. At a time I was broken, thank God keep you open. Yeah.
Hey, interesting vibe shift.
At a time I was hopeless. Woo. Like can change at any moment. Yeah. At a time I was broken. Thank God keep you open. Man, if you can see me now, the journey from that third gear to a lawyer in town, rapping on the side whilst working on the sound. At a time, couldn't see myself getting now. Psychosis came a knocking, it almost never left the boat. It kept on rocking, hit me with another left. But man, I kept walking, took care of myself. Now I'm called to the bar. You should have seen how I wept. Back in the day, never saw the way that I could get to this stage. But this life is a play, and so I kept on playing. Put my faith in God and kept myself praying. Ain't this thing so odd how we find ourselves waiting for a turn in the tide? Rise before the pride, sign after sign, and time after time I tried and tried. Now my road is an incline. So word to the wise and word to the worry. Don't be in a rush, man, don't be in a hurry. Take time to decide, take pride in the journey. What will be, never late, never early. So word to the worry. Don't be in a rush, man, don't be in a hurry. Take time to decide, take pride in the journey. What will be, never late, never early. At a time I was hopeless. Life can change at any moment. At a time I was broken. Thank
Great
God
connection between the two halves.
At a time I was hopeless. Life can change at any moment. At a time I was broken. Thank God keep you open. Thank God keep you open. Man, keep you open. At a time I was broken. Thank God keep you open. Yeah. Hope you enjoy your journeys. Take pride in your stride. My brother, do not ever worry. Keep on moving. Don't be in a hurry. What will be, will be. Never late, never early. God bless you all. May we all find our success, our path to happiness. Live long in bliss. Rest easy. Thank God keep you open.
And that was just a wonderful final track of this album, titled Journey Destination. So I think that this track here, this longer form track split into two, was about where they started in 2008, where they got given the cell phone for the first time and the world kind of opened up and things got worse, unfortunately, over time. But then eventually they managed to get to the bar and do their lawyer stuff, and they're doing music on the side and finding the sound, etc. And I think that that's a beautiful thing. I think it's a beautiful journey that they're putting forward, and it's basically the crux of the entire album is going and establishing that. And I feel like that's something really special. And I think that's something so congratulations to Raw Soul for their achievement. That's a really special thing. Well done. They don't need me to say that. They should be proud of themselves if they're not, but, you know, I mean, we need good people doing that kind of stuff. So thank you. I think that part of what works here is the split between the two different moods and atmospheres and tempo shifts and stuff like that. There's a deliberate minor tone, I think, to the first half of it. And then in the later stage, it becomes more triumphant with these strings and it's major oriented at the key. And it's such a kind of like blunt way to do it, but it's done in a way where it's like emphatic. and you're like, oh no, wow, crazy, we got out of this sort of spiral that we're in, and we're now here, and this is awesome. And that's us looking back on where we were to where we've come from. And it's just an incredibly charming, special thing that we managed to accomplish here. And I adore it to pieces. And I think that part of that what makes this track special is the the contrast between those two, without exception. I don't think you could have done this track differently. I'm so pleased with how it was approached. It also serves as just a fantastic conclusion piece to this. You have an approximation of a lot of what's discussed within this album in this final track. It includes a lot of the instruments we've heard so far, and it kind of summarizes them. I don't think you could have also gotten the same story from only hearing that track by itself, but as a self-titled one at the end, it fills its purpose superbly. And I don't really think there's been no complaints from me about this album. I think it's incredible. It's wonderful stuff. I think there was only one part where I was like, okay, we could have potentially had like another like little lead part or something on top of it just to sort of like add a bit of further development. But aside from that, it's fantastic, and that's very much a nitpick, a subjective thing. It's very special music. And I think that, yeah, just the fact that it summarizes the entire album without being too blunt about it is fantastic there. I think the final thing I'm going to talk about, and it's almost it's so generic, but like a lot of the comments I'm going to make about this are going to be comments put into the final sort of album analysis as well in a moment. I love the humanity and the fact that they are just able to just be real and open about the fact that they're not only... They're saying that you can do it as well, that you can keep following stuff. And as someone who has spoken about their adventure, their journey throughout this album, you understand the difficulties they've gone through and the fact that they managed to overcome it. And you feel this genuine sense alongside the theme behind it that things will improve. And it's a joyous occasion. And they've managed to inspire something within me personally that is just very positive. And it's not always something that I can sort of like admit to feeling, but it's affecting music. It's designed to kind of set an expectation and then push past that. It's not done the way where it's cheesy or disingenuous or uninteresting. There's a deliberate contrast with the heaviness of the bass in the first half versus how things float and you're sky high in that second one. And it's just wonderful. It's just a great track to end on, and it's a good effort. So, I mean, I'm nothing but love, and we're going to talk about this album more in the conclusion. Because welcome to the conclusion of my review of this album from an actor named Raw Soul, titled Journey Destination. Now, I have given my thoughts on each of the individual tracks within their own sort of like mini conclusions per song, so if you wanted to sort of confirm my thoughts on specific tracks, it might be worth looking into that. I'm going to give my overall thoughts on this album here. I've reviewed previous works from Raw Soul, such as the Flu Season EP, as well as In Another Life. And I want to say with all transparency that this is a phenomenal album. It's one of my favorite albums that I reviewed within the genre. And that's not an easy statement to make, because I reviewed a lot of music at this point. It's not a flex, it's just what it is. There's been a lot of music that has come through, and I genuinely enjoyed my time with this album. It's basically summarizing Raw Soul's journey from when they were much younger to now, and the difficulties that they've gone through with people, with their situations, with those around them, with like, I mean, they mentioned psychosis at one point, so I'm not sure whether that's a literal thing or whether like that's just been things affecting them to put them in that state. But either way, they've gone through some profuse difficulties, and they've come out of it to become successful and find purpose as a musician, as being on the bar, finding their sound, and it's just wonderful to hear that journey through. It is an album where it gives you all of that information summarized at the end, but until that point, you're left taking little kind of like snippets and little snacks of it, and you enjoy your time with it anyways. To be clear, the focal point of this album is Raw Soul themselves. And even though there are little samples of like spoken parts there and little bits there, like there are sung vocals as background parts, there are clean parts there are infusions of like jazz and soul and rap and hip hop and a lot of different other genres, with the lo-fi aesthetic being strong with this one. That it's the rapping, the chanting, the spoken parts, the little moments where we kind of have a direct message to the listener that make this special. The fundamentals are adhered through here. Raw Soul can just rap. There's a great sense of flow and wordplay. The words come through clearly. We're very comfortable and polished on a microphone. We know how to express ourselves whilst also deliver lines fluently. and in a way where you want to listen to it. And that's not always a thing that is common. It's not affronting or confrontational at any point. It's very gentle, and it's easier to accept and is more palatable in that respect. But it's also an album where you hear it and you go, man, I've heard this first track and I want to listen to more of what they have to say. They are talking about themselves, but the stories are interesting. There is not a lot of massive amounts of variety or diversity within all of the compositions. A lot of them are based on a fundamental kind of beat with adjustments to variations in the instrumental layers and stuff like that. Some of them have more range, others are more sort of most of it for most of the time. But you typically listen to this, you hear Raw Soul, and you hear them speak their truth and flesh things out in bits, and it's well considered and well communicated. And I genuinely don't know what more you could ask for in this situation there. I think if we were to talk about the actual tracks themselves outside of the vocals and the way they, especially with the final track, Journey Destination, being wonderfully spoken, but it's also in a while as well. You know, talking about the state of the world and how we need to try and sort of make things more positive around us and try to do what we can to make the world a better place a bit at a time. It's simply the beats, the songs behind it. Most of them are 2 minutes, and I think that's really all you need to be able to communicate a lot of the concepts that Raw Soul provides, but there's still so much real estate and so much good stuff within those shorter form songs. Typically there's like a main concept that revolves around like a bass or guitar or drums or keys. Sometimes they have interesting sort of like synthy, kind of like weird kind of warbly bits there that sound a little bit kind of like uncertain or kind of not discordant, but like a little bit kind of like spooky sounding. Other times we have string sections which kind of are 45 seconds of a track there, maybe What's Next if I'm not mistaken, where like we just had things kind of like overlapping each other and these other kind of plucked parts and like arpeggiated synths going up, and it's just really interesting how we incorporate both like older, like more like 70s kind of soulish, kind of like jazzy aesthetic as well. There's some interesting sort of like lounge jazzy kind of piano in certain parts with more sort of like 90s, 2000s or more modern production techniques with like, again, like the old school kind of like drum samplers, the 808s, but there was also electric basses, which I appreciate. The electric basses sounded great. The filtered guitar takes with the use of the kind of like the interesting sort of like, not chorus, it's just there's a finger style to it which is almost like flamenco, like it's just an interesting sort of like decision all around. Things are articulated neatly. There's a wide variety of interesting major and minor triad oriented or extended harmonies within this status sense of emotional complexity to a lot of these tracks. What I'm trying to communicate is, even with Journey and Destination where things are split in the middle with the minor orient being the first part and then majorish being in the second, there's just so much to appreciate, but it's also very stable and reliable in its approach. You can kind of figure that Raw Soul is going to be able to spit however they like over top of these beats, and it makes sense. And for the vast majority of the time I could follow along with the structure of it, the way things were performed and implemented. I mean, like the beats revolve from like go on the drums, go from like triplet grooves very occasionally, predominantly sitting amongst the 8th and 16th note patterns. The bass lines go along the major and minor scales and modes and maybe sort of like interact and do some interesting runs occasionally. The guitars are either fingerstyle or strum parts there with interesting sort of arpeggiated bits fingerstyle wise, or like little flicky bits or ornaments otherwise. The keys, they dance along and there's some interesting sort of like decorations with those as well, and a lot of the other bits are more sort of like decorative or like atmospheric sub layers. But when you put Raw Soul with all these different elements plus the backing vocals and any other things that are going on, they're very well fleshed out concepts, and the mood, the themes that we have typically suit those songs very, very well. I think that to top it off, it's simply the quality of the studio production and recording, mixing and mastering where I feel like I'm missing stuff, but then I'm not really. I feel like a lot of stuff is so succinct that it doesn't need to be over explained. The vocal takes are really well recorded. You can hear them clearly. There's a nice, it's not overproduced. There's a nice sort of resonance of the vocals within the mix there. The backing tracks, the samples, etc., any other spoken parts, they sit well in the mix. It's a very organic performance from Raw Soul as well. Like they allow themselves something to kind of slow down and say peace and then come in and sort of like speak about stuff. It's very kind of fluid, and it seems like they are doing what they need in order to communicate their way I want without being unauthentic about it. And you get that sense of kind of like grounding amongst the guitar, bass, drum, synth, any other elements within this album as a whole there. They are well recorded, they're fleshed out within the frequency spectrum in the stereo field. Music surrounds you in the headphones. There's interesting use of like single and double take, kind of like vocal parts on the sides there. There's never a time where things are uninteresting. I think, again, just in case I didn't mention before, there was one moment where I wasn't sure why we're repeating a chorus again, but even that was faded out over time. We have these interesting volume automations where we fade stuff out as we go. It's really slick. There's phenomenal amounts of dynamic range to stuff. Sometimes the strings do fluctuate and overtake things a little bit, but it's also quiet when it needs to be. And it's nice and loud without pumping to the bus compression limiting is handled. I mean, ultimately, this is just a really satisfying album to listen through from Raw Soul, titled Journey and Destination. I thoroughly enjoyed my time with it. I do think that Journey and Destination was my favorite track off of it, and hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please go show them some love via their various social medias and a Spotify page, and stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world, and I'll catch you in the next SP Reacts. Spiderhands out.